Hello creative people, this is Catherine with the Motley Art, and I have a 6x6 2-page layout using the Eat, Play, Love collection by Close to My Heart, which is a 12x12 collection that I cut down to 6x6 sheets. I'm also using two of the different stamp sets that coordinate with this collection. One is the Eat, Play, Love card making, which has a mason jar and then comes with a bunch of different sentiments that do fit in the mason jar. And the other one is the card making workshop, which comes with a pie and some cherries and was just really cute. Both of them have coordinating dies that I also received with them. And I showed there the sketch that I'm using. It is a greeting card sketch, but I like to adapt them to 6x6, and I just thought this would work really great for the papers and for the design that I had in mind. So I'm going to start off with stamping out my mason jar. Now I'm using just the regular black, which is their dye ink. So if you were going to try to do some watercoloring, you wouldn't want to use this black. They do have an archival black, so if you really like to watercolor, you can use that one instead. Both of them are really nice though. I find that they both give out really crisp dark lines, so either way you're good to go with your black. It's just a matter of what you're going to do on top of it. With this design, I decided I wasn't going to do any watercoloring, so I just went ahead and used the regular dye black. I like using the dye inks because they're just so easy to clean up, more so than the archival pigment inks. It just seems like those really stain your stamps a lot more, can be a little bit harder to clean. So I do like the dye inks for that. And I'm going to go ahead and use those dies, like I said, that come with each of the different stamp sets to cut out these elements. And I'm using a Gemini Mini here, which I really love. I love that it has a 3-inch opening, so you can use a lot of various different dies. I do also have a Big Shot for larger dies, but this Gemini Mini cuts so well and is so convenient. I use it so much with these types of dies that come with these different stamp sets because they're usually under 3 inches, and I can just whip out what I need really quickly. So I love it. And I decided that I was going to try to use one of the sentiments in the mason jar, so I went ahead and stamped it out. And then once I got it stamped, I didn't love it. I don't know. The lagoon is a beautiful color, but I'm not sure that I really like it for sentiments. It just doesn't seem to be as crisp as I wanted it to be. So I'm going to change up my design here. So I took out a knife and I started to cut out the middle with that, and then realized that I was going to need to do some pretty close cutting, and I was going to need to do it a couple of times if I was going to use the knife. So I switched over to my scissors, which I love these scissors by Close to My Heart. They are so sharp and they make fussy cutting so easy. So I went ahead and cut out the middle with my scissors. Now I did get pretty close to the stamped line, but not exactly. I wanted to leave a little bit of space so that it would be easy for me to glue this down. As you can see, there is a couple of parts that are a little tricky, but I was able to get it cut out, and I really liked how I had that frame once I had it cut out. So then I had to decide what I was going to put in my jar. And I thought the easiest thing to do, and something that would be really cute, was on the pie stamp. Like I said, there's several different cherries, and there is this one really small cherry, which I just thought is the cutest little stamp. So that's what I decided. I was like, this little cherry will fill up a jar so cute. So I'm going to use the Candy Apple Red to stamp out a whole bunch of little cherries into my jar. And I am stamping, I think I stamped like 3 or 4 times, before I would go back into the ink. Because this red is such a dark red, you can get a lot of different stamps on it with a different variation of color, and I just thought that would make the jar feel more full if I had different colors. And you could kind of see the cherries a little bit better if you have some lighter ones and then some darker ones. So I'm just gonna keep filling up this jar until I get it to a point that I think looks really nice and really cute, and then I'm going to glue on the frame that I cut out. So I think this is just came out to make a really cute little mason jar full of cherries. A lot of the Eat, Play, Love collection is still available online only at Close to My Heart. If you go to the description, you'll see more information about that and a link down below. So I just used Tombow to glue that on. And then once I had it on, I thought it still needed a little something. So I'm going to take some colored pencils and I'm going to just lightly color in the heart, and I'm going to color in the top too. And I think it just ends up giving this a really nice finished look to the design, and really helps to pull it in with the rest of the colors that I'm using on this layout. And I do really like using colored pencils. I think they give you a soft look that is really nice. So that way you get a little bit of color, but it's not in your face with color. So here I'm going to start working on the layout itself. So I loved this page that is just a whole bunch of cherries. I just thought it was really cute. And I'm going to cut this down to 5.5 by 5.5, and you can see the other side of it has a nice yellow plaid pattern on it, kind of like a tablecloth. So then I'm going to pull out some of the sheets that had cut aparts on them. So this one sheet of 12 by 12 had all these different small cut aparts. So I'm going to cut out 3 that I want to go onto this design, and then later I'm going to cut a couple more out for the other page of this design. And I just think that these are really cute. You can use them in so many different ways, and I liked that they had some that have sentiments on it, but then they have some that are just pictures. I like that. I feel like you can really mix and match what you want to do with your designs that way. So I wanted all 3 of these to go across the bottom, but I also kind of wanted there to be a little bit of space between them. So I'm going to take some time and I'm going to trim them up. And I'm using my trimmer, but I realized that they're not, even though they kind of look like they should have all been around 2 by 2, they're not exactly. Some of them were a little bit bigger, some of them a little bit smaller. It really kind of depended on what the image was that was in each box. So I'm just going to do this by eye. I'm just going to take off little bits here and there until I get them to be about the same size. And I'm not really worried about getting a perfect size. So I really didn't measure this. I just kept working on it a little bit at a time. But I do like the way that it came out, and I don't think you would ever notice that they're not perfectly the same size. So sometimes a little bit of irregularity in your design can be really interesting. It can just give a different look, give some different texture to what you're designing. So don't be afraid of that. So now I'm trying to decide how I'm going to put my die cuts onto this page. I really wanted to make sure that I got both the mason jar and the pie onto this page. I just really like how the two of them play together, and I'm also trying to decide if I want to bring in some more yellow to this page. I was thinking that there wasn't enough yellow and that I could add more, but in the end, I'm going to decide to add additional red instead. So that's where I'm doing that now, with adding a second cardstock layer for the border, because I decided that I really didn't like that 1/4 inch border going around the page. I wanted it to be a smaller border. So I really have decided that 1/8 of an inch is what I like better than a 1/4 inch border. I just think it looks nice. It just looks better to my eye. So if you like a 1/4 inch border, that's great. But I really like 1/8 of an inch, and so I needed to add a second sheet of cardstock, and I really like the way that this turns out. I love all the red in this design, and it just helps to kind of bring that all out and kind of pull it all together. So here, like I said, I was trying to add a little bit more of that yellow. I thought maybe that would look nice as like a tablecloth, but in the end I decided that I just didn't really like it that much, and I went with a red scrap piece of paper instead. I think it's about 1/4 of an inch, and I just thought that it gave it a nice kind of delineation between the top part of this layout and the bottom part of this layout. But I felt like it was still a little bit unbalanced, so I decided that I wanted to bring out one more sentiment. So on the Eat, Play, Love card making kit, there one of the sentiments says seasoned with love, and I thought that would be really cute to put up in the corner. So I'm just stamping that out now, and because I was using red as my unifying element for these pages, I decided to stamp this in red as well. And then I'm just going to cut it out, because while this stamp set does have coordinating die cuts, none of the sentiments have a die cut. I believe the idea is that you're going to put these sentiments into the mason jar, and then you're going to die cut out the mason jar, which does look really cute, and I am planning on doing some more of that. But for this page, I wanted it up in there in the corner, and it's very easy to cut out. It was very easy to go around it, especially using those scissors from Close to My Heart, because they make fussy cutting so easy. I love them. So I'm going to start adding down all my elements, and I'm just going to glue them down with Tombow. And I like to just kind of dot my Tombow around, so that way I'm not getting too much of the glue and it's not going to go everywhere. Another little tip about gluing, if you're having a problem with your glue kind of going all over the place, is if you press from the outside in instead of from the inside out, you're going to keep the glue from coming out through the edges. So that's what I try to do, is to press on the outside of the paper in, so then I'm spreading the glue inwards instead of pushing the glue outwards. I just find that helps a really lot. Doesn't mean that I don't still sometimes get some glue to come out. I do. It's almost impossible to keep that glue from not coming out sometimes, but I find that tip really helps, really works really well, and I have the minimum amount of glue coming out. So here I went ahead and added my red line there, and I'm going to put my die cuts on top of it so it's grounded by that red piece. And then I'm going to add a little bit of cardstock to my mason jar, because it is going over top of the pie. You could kind of see the dip where it went off of the pie, so I wanted to just try to make that a little bit more flat so there's not so much of a noticeable dip. But you're gonna see that when I did this the first time, I totally put stuff on the wrong side. It's not the end of the world. I am able to fix that, but sometimes you do that when you're working on these. It's hard to sometimes remember which side is the side you need to add additional cardstock to. So I just removed it and then added it back. So the Tombow is great because while it does catch fairly quickly, it still gives you a little bit of time to be able to pull things apart if you really have to. And I love that about this glue. So now I'm just going to glue that down. After I add a little bit more cardstock, I forgot that I did that, and then I'm going to glue it down. And I'm also going to glue down all of my other elements. I was able to space everything out so that I could put these 3 squares down there at the bottom, but still have a little bit of the blue paper above and below it. And I just really like the way that that came out. I think it looked really nice and made the whole thing come together. And then I'm going to pop up on some foam dots my sentiment, just to give it a little bit of dimension onto this page, because everything else is very, very flat. But I thought that I thought about popping up one of those elements on the bottom, but I thought it would look weird. It would call attention to it in a way that I didn't want to call attention. So I decided to do the sentiment at the top instead, and I think that really looked wonderful. And then I added some of these sequin flowers to the design as well. And I also decided to do some gold sparkle bits in the flowers, and I just think that really finished it off, gives it a nice little bit of glitter to the page. And so now I'm doing my second page, and as you can see, I kind of already prepared it, and I did go ahead and gut my red on this one so that I could use the middle portion for my photo mat, which is for a 3x4 image. So I cut it at 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and then I placed my paper on top. But once I had done that, I thought that there again it was going to dip down a little bit, so I'm just using some scrap black that I had just sitting aside from other projects, and I'm just going to fill in that middle section. But I wanted to use that red out of the paper so that I could just get as much functionality out of the red that I had as possible. So this is a way to kind of stretch your cardstock if you only have a few sheets of one color of cardstock and you want to get a little bit more life out of it. So I'm pretty much going to make the exact same design. So I wanted my border, my red border there, to match up with the other side, so when you see it next to each other, it won't be wonky. They'll just really work together very nicely. And then I'm going to add my photo mat at the top, and then I'm going to add my 3 small designs there at the bottom. And again, I am going to trim those up a little bit so that they all fit on the page, but they also give a little bit of a border. I just thought it looked nicer if you could see a little bit of the background paper poking through these cutouts, and so that's why I take the time to just sort of trim them up and get them, again, just eyeballing them. I try to get them to be about the same size, but you're gonna see that middle one on this design ended up being a little bit smaller than the other ones, but I liked it, especially like that spice things up. I kept a little bit bigger than the other two. That way it draws your eye to that one, and I thought that was cute. I thought it was a cute sentiment that spiced things up. Now I also decided to put them down, so I did the 2 outside and then I did the middle, and that's just a great way if you're putting 3 things down to make sure that your spacing looks good, because you can adjust that middle one to make sure that you have equal spacing once you've put the other 2 down. So I was here thinking about which color side I wanted to use with Close to My Heart. Their cardstock is actually dark on one side and then lighter on the other side, but I did decide to go with the dark red because that's what I had been using throughout the rest of the design, and I just felt like it was too distracting to then all of a sudden use a slightly lighter red color. And I added some more of the black cardstock that is just scrap that I had sitting aside in my room so that I could have it elevated a little bit. I wanted it popped up a little bit, but I didn't want to pop it up a lot, and that's why I decided to use the cardstock instead of the foam dots, because I thought the foam dots would raise it up a little too high. Sometimes I just want to have a little bit of dimension, but not a ton of dimension. And then I'm bringing in those sequin flowers again. I think these are really cute. They're white, but when you put them on items, they almost look iridescent. They're just a little hint of something, right? Just a little hint of embellishment, and I really like that. And then I went ahead and added the sparkle middles, which is a gold sparkle, so that it would match the other one. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you have a very creative day.